You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm your host, Leanne Langford. I'm the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is a learning and development contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let Training Pros find you the best consultant to start your project with confidence. I'm really excited about my guest today. He definitely would qualify as a learning leader, but he is actually an influencer in the L&D field, specifically AI. Please join me in welcoming Josh Cavalier, the founder and CEO of JoshCavalier.ai. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, Leanne. Great to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And I just wanted to say, it's not been released yet as of our recording, but I bought a copy of your book at the latest Learning Guild conference.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, ATD Press snuck it out there, and it's at conferences. We're 4 weeks, as of this recording, we're 4 weeks out from the publication date. So yes, the momentum is building. Copies are out there in the wild, and it's great to see that you have a copy.
I do. I have my copy. I'm going to make sure and post a picture on your Leaf Week, that I've got your book. So why don't you share with our audience a quick overview of what it is you do?
Yeah, it's been evolving and changing. So I'm, as you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of JoshCavalier.ai. We are an education company focused in on upskilling and reskilling learning and development professionals in the age of AI. And when I first got into the space in 2023, I didn't quite know how it was going to show up. Like, I was focused in on putting information out there for L&D professionals, but there was an opportunity to go wide, to actually go ahead and put knowledge and information out there for not just L&D, but so many other industries. But it became apparent with the feedback I was getting from industry peers and comments up on LinkedIn, I got to stick in this area. I mean, I've been in L&D for over 30 years, and it just made sense. So instead of going wide, I decided to go ahead and focus, and the output of that is this book. And it has been, for me personally, just I'm having so much fun going in and making breakthroughs for individuals who were either on the fence with AI, they didn't quite understand their role or where the things are headed as far as their professional career, and being able to build a bridge, like being able to have them see themselves as part of this conversation and not on the sidelines, which is really important. So once I started seeing more of that, the momentum is building, and I'm just leaning into it at this point.
Okay, fabulous. Here's a history question for you. How did you join the L&D field? I know most of us our age did not go to school for learning and development. How
Right.
did you join the field?
Well, I have a degree in medical illustration, and that was my intention, was to stay in that field. I actually started a business called Biodesigns way back in 1992 after I graduated, and I was focused in on medical legal, and I did do some work there. But during my, when I was in college, I was exposed to multimedia, very early multimedia, and it was fascinating to me, the ability to go ahead and control things that were happening with a computer. Absolutely fascinated me. So I always had this in the back of my head as I was, working forward with medical illustration. Well, I bounced around pretty early in my career, and I wound up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was an opportunity to be an art director for an e-learning firm called Hanshaw, and I got that role. And I worked for Dick Hanshaw. For those of you who are not familiar with Dick has worked with Jim and Dana Robinson, um, on performance consulting. He's written multiple books, and I was so lucky to work for him because he was a firm believer in cross training, meaning that as in addition to my art director role, he pushed me to learn instructional design. He pushed me to learn performance consulting. I had no idea why I was spending a week with Jim Robinson learning about performance consulting. But now hindsight's 2020. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was an amazing experience. I understand now how important it is. So from there, actually, my job got eliminated. Hanshaw was moving off into a different direction. They were going to go ahead and create an online learning platform. They didn't quite need an art director to do all the custom work anymore. So I started Lodestone in 1999. Prior to starting Lodestone, I was teaching Flash and Dreamweaver at night. It was getting some traction just because the web was taken off at that time. And when I started Lodestone, eventually grew it to be one of the top Adobe authorized training partners in the United States with 5 locations. I had 14 employees. And then things shifted and changed. And so, I was having a blast going into L&D departments and spinning them up on technology. So I'm an education technologist, LMS, LXP implementation, a lot of tool training. But things were shifting and changing in the marketplace. You had lynda.com, you had a lot of shift to online training as opposed to the physical locations that I had. And so there was a point where I was like, okay, I got to put a pause on this. I need to go ahead and rethink what I'm doing, and went back into corporate. So that was a big decision on my part to actually just put a pause on what I was doing from a business standpoint. And I tried reconstituting and tried other things like doing live online training, and nothing was hitting. So it was time for a reset. Went back into corporate for 3 years, and I worked for a $5 billion supply chain company, working on very just important projects, whether it be the implementation of Teams during COVID or pivotal projects that were supporting frontline sales. Everything was moving along, and then AI showed up. And I got my hands on ChatGPT a week after it was released, and things changed. I knew at that moment, once I was able to go ahead and work through some prompts to create a learning objective and a storyboard and a video script, this is going to be another pivotal moment in our industry. And so I chased after it. And here we are. So in May of 2023, I formed JoshCavalier.ai. And actually, it was happening a little bit earlier than that, but it was just kind of like a side hustle or just to keep the saw sharp. But now, I'm 2 years into it, and we're off to the races.
Well, I definitely see your name everywhere right now, so you did something right. So the name of your book is Applying AI in Learning and Development. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, it's a good question because this whole process took about 1.5 years. And I had, let me go back a little bit further. So I'm very blessed because I know so many very intelligent people in this industry, and they're my peers. And for the longest time, I've been telling them, I need to write a book. I need to write a book. So I started writing a book, but not on AI. It was on video. And I was going to self-publish it. It was done. It already been edited. It's being indexed. And then AI showed up. And I was like, I can't release that book. I can't. I have to. I don't want to, because I had all kinds of plans around that book. But then I knew in this moment that my attention to AI and how it shows up in L&D was way more important than this other book I was doing. So that's on the shelf. I think it's going to show up again in a different way. So I still have book on my mind, having gone through that process. And once I was about, I don't know, I'd say about 6 months in, I started noticing patterns starting to form as far as how AI was showing up in organizations, about how L&D professionals were using AI, how peers were sharing information about tips and tricks and strategies around using AI. And I'm like, there's some consistency here, in so much that I think there's a whole book that I can write about this. because it became evident that as AI found its way throughout the whole entire tech stack, each and every touch point is going to impact how L&D shows up. And I'm like, someone's got to tell the story. Someone's got to like work through, because there's so many different facets to this problem. And that's the nucleus of the book. So the front part is the foundations, like things that you should know about AI, like probability versus deterministic. We then get into the strategic side of the learning ecosystem, all the way from like foundational technology like Microsoft and Google, all the way down to LMS, LXP, and even other like learning content platforms. But then the second half of the book is tactics, is going from a prompt all the way up to an agent, and then content management techniques leveraging AI. So it's pretty inclusive. Whether you're a leader and you want to take a look at it from a strategic standpoint, or you are an individual contributor and you want to get down into the tactics. So it definitely addresses both those audiences.
Well, it's an amazing book. It's quite thick, so I haven't finished it, but I'm enjoying reading it. Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Um, if let's How do you see AI changing the role of learning and development professionals? How do you see this affecting our jobs?
In the book, I talk about the evolution to a human machine performance analyst, which is a mouthful. And I just want to break that down. The human machine part is this new reality that as learning professionals that we have to figure out now the net performance of humans working with AI. If I support a certain part of the business, and that part of the business has individuals leveraging AI, are they using it effectively? Like, that is our new reality. Like, we have to navigate those waters and figure out not only the human component of it, but then working with IT, working with HR, and figuring out, okay, if we now have this agentic capability that complements or even takes over a portion of tasks on a role, what does that mean? Like, are we upskilling or reskilling humans so we can retain their talent into an organization? That's the human machine part. So the performance analyst part is, it's kind of like getting out the crystal ball a little bit and thinking about content creation and how it's crashing down, meaning that we're starting to see a collapse in the amount of time that it takes to create a learning experience. It's slow right now, but you can start to see how the types of learning experiences, the automations that are being built into where, and like the low hanging fruit is, hey, upload a SOP and you get a course, which I question the value of that. But point being is, over time, that's going to evolve and mature, and it's going to crash down to where, as opposed to building content as a learning professional, you're going to orchestrate that content. And that's a whole different story. So if you orchestrate the content, where do you live? You live on the edges. You live in the business, understanding exactly what's happening in the moment. So there's a lot of data that's going to be collected to represent that moment in time. And are we leveraging our performance consulting skills to identify, is this a training issue? Right? And then if it is a training issue, orchestrating with agents or orchestrating AI to create those learning experiences at scale, hyper-personalized with custom learning paths. Did we move the needle? So we created this orchestration, and on the other side of it is the analytics. And I believe that's where we're going to live. Thus the term analyst, right? You're now analyzing what's happening in regards to learning that's happening throughout the organization at scale. And then that cycle continues. So you'll take a look at the analytics, you'll turn the knobs, make adjustments so that when that same situation occurs, or if it's an ongoing learning situation, you just make adjustments to the orchestration.
So, as someone who, like you, grew up in the L&D age of performance consulting when, Danny Gaines Robbins, their performance consulting book was like the Bible.
Right.
I mean, literally, that was what your go-to was. And I literally had a title that was like performance development manager,
Right.
It wasn't instructional design manager, it was performance. I'm thrilled actually to see performance consulting is making this huge comeback, and it fits perfectly in with the fact that AI is going to make content development more of a sideline than a major job.
Yeah. Performance consulting was always there. And
But it wasn't
y-
for everybody.
exactly. And it is really emphasized now to where you're able to go in and get multiple points of data that's happening within the business. And we have a tool, AI, that is extremely good at recognizing patterns and pattern recognition to where if you have, let's say, 100 um, incident reports that's happening on the front lines, let's say you have like 500 units of a restaurant, you have all these incident reports. Man, there is some really good data sitting in there, but how do you sift through all of that data to look for through lines of potential performance issues that could be happening across your whole entire business? Yeah, what would have taken weeks to go through now could take hours. And it's going to give you identifying markers as far as where to emphasize or where to focus in on as you continue the performance consulting process in interviews and making sure that, is this truly an issue, right? So I think there's so many opportunities for learning professionals to gain experience in doing performance consulting and getting on the front end and working with the business at a new level that we haven't worked with before, or at least at scale.
I'm excited about this every single day. I think that there's so much that can be done with it. I was literally in a meeting yesterday discussing my idea to do a custom GPT for performance support for a group of people at my company. And, I was like, okay, I don't know how to do it, but I know it can be done. What do we need to do? And how do we get the people to adopt it?
Right.
So it's exciting times.
Yeah, and I think what you just illustrated there is the opportunity and the challenges with this technology. Like the possibilities are infinite, but we have to go ahead and create pointed solutions. And once that solution is created, you got to maintain it, right? So as we create a GPT, create an automation, create an agent, it's not a one and done. Like it is software engineering. and uh and there's definitely a lot of responsibilities that go along with that. And so there's going to have to be a shift in mindset for learning professionals as we get more sophisticated with these platforms and AI and tools and automations and agents, because software engineering and systems and system design is going to be essential, and it's going to be a skill that everyone's going to have to pick up.
I couldn't agree more. Even as a leader, you have to understand the capabilities at a bare minimum. Maybe not how to do it, but you need to know what can be done and, you know, how to manage it being done. And of course, like you said, the maintenance of it.
Uh, exactly. And everything that our industry revolves around in regards to adult learning principles and learning science, the evidence-based frameworks, or even, and I'm a media guy, and one that comes up over and over again for me is speaking at 150 words per minute. Like that is an optimal rate of speech when you're trying to transfer information if you're using video or audio. Well, how do you leverage that? Well, when you're creating prompts to create a script, when you are evaluating audio that's created with AI, when you're creating video with AI, all of that, that foundational element now propagates throughout all of your content creation workflows. But if you don't understand that one core concept, you could be creating what would be TikTok style videos if it's too fast. And if it's too slow, you could be really, you know, having
Just
issues
losing
with
my
individuals
attention.
consuming that content. Right. Yeah, it's like too slow. I'm bored to death.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just one example. I mean, think about all the different little facets of learning science that we tap into each and every day. Not only that, if you don't understand those concepts and you lean into the pseudoscience or, like learning styles or, the attention span of a goldfish or all these things that get debunked, um, you can be in a real mess. So I'm very concerned about the new learning professionals, and I just mentored somebody 30 under 30 group, and I couldn't emphasize enough to my mentee that she has to have foundational understanding of adult learning principles and learning science so that she doesn't get caught up in AI generating some type of solution that looks good on paper, but when you go ahead and you actually put it in practice, it would just be a disaster.
Well, I'm happy to hear someone like you is mentoring tomorrow's leaders. Um, I so we I can't be the only one that's experienced this. There's people that I work with in different capacities that really are a little afraid to jump into AI. If you would give every L&D professional out there a first project to try, what kind of thing would you ask them to try to get comfortable with AI?
I always, mention individuals that are on the fence or they could be completely into the field, not even seeing the fence with AI, is they need to lean into their expertise. Like they have to think about the work they do day in and day out, things that they're passionate about, and how would they use AI as an intern or as a collaborator in getting a simple task done. And the unlock usually happens when there's a task that's extremely time consuming and they're able to go ahead and think about their sources of truth, a prompt, a model, and they're able to get that 95% completion of that task. And they get emotional about it. Like, so every time I do a workshop, that unlock happens, you can hear it in the room because the veil has been unlifted. They understand the risk. They understand how things work now, and they feel more comfortable about it. It's not this like, and again, there's so much noise that's out there to where some people think it's like a sentient being, and it's got its own personality and life of its own, and they don't understand how it works. But once you get those foundations down and you have that moment of unlock, it's a completely different story. And so, one, I would say lean into your expertise. Two, give yourself some grace. Like, give yourself some time to actually go in and learn about prompting and learning about getting that one task done. And find your community, like find others that align with you on their view of AI and work together in a positive way towards using AI. Because I see individuals that are, they're very apprehensive and they get thrown into other professionals that are completely gung ho. They're all in on AI. It's a bad combination, right? So you definitely want to find your peer group as you make this journey, and but keep moving forward. Like keep progressing and keep pushing to where you feel comfortable using the technology.
That's really great advice. In your book, you talk about AI ecosystems or ecosystems, depending on how you pronounce things. What does that look like inside a mature L&D function?
All right. So the ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier, is AI hitting all of these various touch points within the tech stack. So you're like at the top with like Microsoft or Google. Then you have a human capital management system, which could be Workday or Oracle. And then you have a knowledge management system, which could be ServiceNow. And then you have an LMS, LXP. And then you have a content platform like Open Sesame or LinkedIn Learning. There's a lot of various touch points where AI can be a part of that. In a mature L&D function, it's using AI. We got to go all the way to the top of the stack, right? You got to look at Microsoft. You got to look at Google Workspace. And has your IT team, have they created an environment that is where you can be proactive with AI, right? And also with policy and governance and security. So has your legal team, your comms, change management, and HR, have they created an environment that is not going to slap you on the hand, but is actually going to encourage you to experiment and use these models proactively, right? Those are foundational elements. If those don't exist, there's tons of friction, there's tons of barriers, and you don't see that modern L&D function show up. Now, for my customers that are on that other side, to where, yes, they have an AI ecosystem to where they have access to multiple models, they can go ahead and create agents, they can create GPTs, they can create their prompt libraries, they can create automations. It is full steam ahead, Captain. It is on. And those are the functions that are doing like mini hackathons. They're figuring out what prompts are going to work best with which models. They're evaluating their tools and their platforms for AI, and they're building that, I guess, workflows that are optimal with AI, and continuing to do continual education with their L&D associates. That's the key. Is like, it's not a one and done. And I for every workshop I teach or go into a customer, yeah, the workshop is great, but what is your 30, 60, 90-day plan? Like, what are you doing after this experience? Are you doing, biweekly or bi-monthly meetings to look at prompt libraries? Are you doing additional training that's going to advance? Like, are you doing automation training? Are you doing agent training based upon the frameworks you have access to? Where are you going with this? So there's definitely a lot of acceleration for L&D departments that have those foundational elements in place.
That is such a good little bite you just gave us. I'm imagining pulling that out and sharing it with people. There was so much good information. If you were designing an L&D team of the future from scratch, what skills would be non-negotiable today?
Right. So they would still have to have adult learning principles and learning science. That's like a non-negotiable skill, and that takes time, right? Especially for individuals that were maybe once a subject matter expert and they get thrown into, now they're a trainer. You get it. They're learning the field. But that's one. Two, data and analytics, right? Being able to go in and use language so that you understand sources of truth and how valid they are, and also based upon your learning experiences or learning programs, is it moving the needle, right, on the analytics side? Three would be business acumen. So being able to speak the language of business leaders and working down into the business. Four would be system design, being able to go ahead and architect systems and getting down to the atomic task level and understanding the design of work, because that's massive. I believe what is going to end up evolving or happening is, as we get humans working with agents, that agent can begin to recognize when there is a performance deficiency with a human doing their end of the work, and that agent can call a performance agent to then go ahead and do coaching in the moment, or spin up some type of lesson, or in the flow of work. Like, we have an opportunity to reach the pinnacle of somebody doing their job I mean, we've all experienced like you're in a piece of software and you're like, oh my God, how do I do this formula in Excel? Like, or this pivot table? Well, I mean, the software will recognize like, oh, you're having a problem with a pivot table. Let me help you out. You let me go ahead and do it for you, or do you want to learn how the background here? Sure, let me spin up a coach or whatever. It can be a whole different way of thinking about putting together learning experiences. But those 4 items would be like non-negotiable if I was putting together an L&D team. On top of all the other skills that they currently have today. But the business acumen part and working down into the business is going to be essential as we move forward. Because I think, when you talk about the L&D function of the future, I think it's going to be federated and to where you're going to have certain resources working down closely with the business, but then you have a central L&D function that is handling learning ecosystem, AI implementation, new ways of learning experiences and vetting those new learning experiences. And then once that new technology gets vetted, it can disseminate down into these different, like I think fingers into the business. So that's my take on like where professionals should focus in on the next couple of years.
Fantastic. All right. Last question, Josh. Other than this fantastic book that we obviously recommend and I'm really enjoying reading, where should learning professionals go to learn more about how they can use AI in L&D?
Yeah, I have. It's funny because I get this question all the time. Like, how do you keep up with AI? Right? Like, I only have so much time, and I'm extremely busy. But I tend to go to YouTube. There are individuals out there that are building their whole careers around keeping up on AI news. Not only just keeping up on it, but putting it through their lens and giving you their perception as far as what's happening in the industry. So I would find individuals that are doing that for you. Like I mean, I could go ahead and make suggestions, and I have a couple people, but you have to find your sources of truth. Like you have to find your people that resonate for you. But make sure that you dedicate some time and even ask some peers. Maybe they have a recommendation as far as individuals that are doing this hard work so that you can watch a 10-minute overview in the morning and you get it. Like you don't have to like plow through and figure out, oh, is this model any good? No, somebody just spent a whole day testing 4 image models and you can watch a 10-minute video and know exactly which model to use. Like you don't have to like bang your head up against the wall. There are so many different resources that are out there. Find your resources, and I do. I have my resources, and I lean into those daily, and it keeps me up to date as far as what's going on, and both from the macro level, which the macro level would be what are the labs doing? What are they doing with data centers? How is that impacting the environment? What does it mean from a societal standpoint with AI? All the way down to the tactics, like I just mentioned, with what's the better image model this week, right? So find your people out there on the socials, including YouTube, and I think that will scratch the itch.
It's really good advice. It's so much easier to get information now than when you and I started.
Right? Yes, very much so.
It feels a lot more like the Matrix where you just plug in and you get it. Because back when you and I first started, I had a newsletter that came in the mail once a month.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And then
exactly.
training magazine, of those things. And it was in the mail, and that's all I got.
Right, exactly. And I think what it is being able to understand signal, because there's so much noise that's out there in the marketplace that you have to find your individuals or groups that are putting out signal about this, about AI and about the transformation of the profession and this industry. Find where your signals are at.
Well, Josh, you have been an amazing guest. I could keep on talking to you for another half hour, but you've got things to do. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a guest on our podcast today. As our thank you to you, I don't know if you know this, but Training Pro's charity is that we plant trees in the world.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, to date, we've planted over 5,000 trees, and we're going to plant 5 more in your name.
Wow. Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Matter of fact, just this past weekend, I went ahead and picked up a couple trees, and we're planting those trees here this weekend. So I'm all into trees.
I'm sure your trees are bigger than the ones we're doing, little seedlings, but it's for, restoration after a fire or to help with
Oh,
soil
it's great.
erosion, that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you so much for being our guest today. We really appreciate it. And that is it for this week's episode of Learning Leader Spotlight. We hope you join us again next week to hear from another learning leader in another industry.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.